Hello and welcome to another Brawl video. Today I'm playing this almost mono-black control deck built around Withar Cocoon Keeper, but at the same time I'm also trying to summon Vecna by combining the Eye of Vecna with the Hand of Vecna and the Book of Vile Darkness. If we can get all three of them in play at once, we can transform them into an 8/8 indestructible creature, which will also inherit all three of those abilities. But that's kind of a side quest. The main game plan still revolves around our commander. With our Cocoon Keeper in paper would be Mr. Negative, a 7-mana 5/5 with Vigilance and Lifelink, saying when it enters, we may exchange life totals with target opponent. If we happen to have lost a life this way, we also get to draw that many cards. Although more often than not, we're going to be the ones with a lower life total, since we have a lot of ways to actively pay life. The cards from Vecna also play into that theme, and once our life total is low enough, we simply play our commander, swap life totals, and all of a sudden our opponent's the one in danger of dying, and we can potentially finish them off using some of our black burn spells. So playing against Withar is also tricky for the opponent, since they'll have to think twice about attacking us, since that's essentially lowering their own life total as well if they cannot counter our commander. So then I've split up the deck into a few different categories to help with the breakdown, of course starting with a lot of mana acceleration, since we are trying to cast a very expensive 7-mana commander, so we'll need all the help we can get to 7 mana in the first place. Then we've got a lot of spot removal. Most of these can answer creatures, some can also hit non-creature permanents. A lot of these can also gain life to help offset some of the other life loss in the deck, and some of these, as we've said, can also target the opponent directly, so they kind of function as a black burn spell to maybe close out the game after having swapped life totals. Then we also have plenty of board wipes, since we're a mostly creatureless control deck, so we don't want to get run over by opposing creatures. And then we've got a lot of card draw as well. Most of these are repeatable card draw engines, and some of these can also actively let us pay life, even at will, so we can set our life total to 1, and then swap life totals with our commander, and easily win the game from there. And then we also have a few tutor effects to maybe help assemble the 3 Vecna pieces, especially the Increasing Ambition and Behold to the Beyond can potentially grab all 3 combo pieces at once, and otherwise they can still be used to get some of our card draw engines or sweepers depending on what we need, or maybe some of our finishers to burn the opponent out. And then our miscellaneous section includes the 3 Vecna pieces, as well as some hand disruption to make sure the opponent doesn't have any key counter spells or other interaction that could mess things up. So that's our deck in a nutshell. Now for the deep dive, starting with our mana acceleration. Dark Ritual can give us a nice start, especially if we can cast one of our 3 mana enchantments on turn 1 to get ahead on cards. Then we've got a lot of 2-mana ramp artifacts. Terminus, Signet, and Talisman are recent additions. And then the classics, Arcane Signet, Cold Steel Heart, Guardian Idol, Mindstone, Solar Transformer, and the Iron Crag occasionally transforms into an equipment. If we can suit up our commander, it has some nice keywords. And then there's a Skyclave Relic, which we can play with Kicker to make additional copies. Worn Power Stone, if we get to untap with it, makes 2 mana. And so does Hedron Archive and the Ring. Solemn can also get an extra swamp to power up some of our removal spells, which scale with the number of swamps in play. And then a Gilded Lotus can immediately tap for triple black if needed. Then our spot removal does include Swords to Plowshares. Despite not having a ton of white mana to cast it on turn 1, it is still very synergistic with our commander, as we can essentially increase the opponent's life total before exchanging it. Then we do have Fatal Push, as well as a Bitter Triumph, can also hit opposing planeswalkers, can also pay life to it. Same with Dismember, which we can potentially cast paying 4 life for just 1 mana. And Snuff Out can also be a free removal spell for opposing non-black creatures by paying 4 life. Then we have a few of these removal spells that scale with a number of swamps in play. Consuming Corruption is the best one of the bunch, as it's just double black, can also target opposing planeswalkers. There's the Tendrils of Corruption. And then at 6 mana, there's Corrupt. The upside here is that we can also target the opponent directly, so this can also function as a black burn spell. Same with a Cat Gator at 7 mana, so that's why our mana base is pretty much all swamps, so we don't miss out on any damage. Then we also have the Anguished Unmaking to maybe deal with opposing artifacts and enchantments that are harder for us to deal with. And Invoke Despair can also be an answer to opposing planeswalkers and enchantments, can also draw us a few cards in the process. And March of Wretched Sorrow can also deal damage and gain life to help offset some of our card draw effects. Then our sweepers also include a way to lose life with Toxic Deluge, And for mana, there's Damnation as probably the best of the bunch. And then we also have Languish, Blasphemous Edict, Deadly Cover-Up occasionally exiles a card from the opponent's graveyard. Villainous Wealth can also make the opponent lose life as a way to close out the game if we've maybe put them to 1 life. And then Blood on the Snow can occasionally get back a creature. That's also why we're playing Snow-Covered Swamps in the mana base. And then a Day of the Black Sun can also scale with the amount of mana we sink into it. And the Meathook Massacre can also be a way to gain additional life or make the opponent lose life as a way to close out the game. Then our card draw includes some one-shot effects with Night's Whisper and Sign in Blood at the cost of 2 life. Sign in Blood can also target the opponent to maybe burn them out. Then there's the Maze Mind Tome, eventually gaining 4 life. And then we've got a lot of these 3 mana enchantments that can pay life to draw cards. The Connections can aggressively lose a lot of life, especially if we choose all 3 modes. Arena is just going to pay 1 life to draw an extra card each turn. But the 2 Necro enchantments especially are very powerful with our commander, as we can pay a ton of life at will, set our life total to 1 essentially, and swap it with the opponent to easily win the game. Dread Presence, when we play a swamp, can either draw at the cost of a life or deal 2 damage and gain 2, can also finish the opponent off. The One Ring can also pay a life, and then the Immortal Sun shuts down all Planeswalkers as we don't have any in the deck, while also discounting our spells. Then we have a few tutor effects to help assemble all the Vecna pieces, for instance. Insatiable Avarice can either draw 3 at the cost of 3 life, or can also search up a card and put it on top. There's a Grim Tutor, can find any card at the cost of 3 life. Besiege the Mirror can maybe sack something to bargain, so we can immediately cast a spell we found with mana value 4 or less. There's the Increasing Ambition, 5 mana to find any 1 card, 8 mana to flash it back to find 2 more. And then a Dark Petition, if we have Spell Mastery enabled, will give us 3 mana in return, so not a bad way to tutor for a card, essentially turns into a Demonic Tutor. And then Behold the Beyond, 7 mana to discard our hand first, so that is a pretty big restriction, but then we get to search for 3 individual cards, so that can potentially assemble all 3 Vecna pieces if we don't have them already. And then our miscellaneous section, of course, has a few discard effects with Thoughtseize and Grief, which we can maybe evoke if we pitch a black card from our hand. There's also Cling to Dust, which can function as Graveyard Hate or additional card draw, can also gain life in a pinch. And then we've got our 3 Vecna pieces. Eye of Vecna, also a decent card draw engine if we're willing to pay 2 mana and 2 life each turn. The Book of Vile Darkness can occasionally make a zombie token. And then the Hand of Vecna can maybe pump up our creature, can also potentially actively lose life if we have more than 1 creature in play. By constantly equipping it between multiple creatures, we can lower our own life total to then set up our commander and hopefully win the game from there. And then the mana base, 30 Snow-Covered Swamps, 3 fetchable black-white dual lands that still have the swamp type. Godless Shrine can enter untapped, Backstreet to Surveil, Sinkhole as a 3rd option in case we draw multiple of the white fetch lands, since these cannot get swamps, but of course all the black fetch lands can always get Snow-Covered Swamp, in addition to getting our black-white dual lands, and Urborg can occasionally turn our fetch lands into swamps as well, especially relevant alongside Dread Presence, so with Urborg now a fetch land can count as 2 swamps if we fetch one up afterwards, so that can give us additional triggers. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Choco, Band, Birds. We've got a Keeper, Cold Steel into maybe a turn 3 Hardcast Grief. Sign in Blood can draw more cards. And our opponent's got their own mana artifact. Gonna name white here to maybe cast our commander later. So our opponent's going to be mostly a creature deck. Of course, blue can give them access to counter spells. But if they just play out a bunch of creatures, our deck is pretty happy to face those. Now Tifa, so more of a landfall card. Alright, so next turn I can invoke Despair. For now, I think I just cast a Grief. See what they're working with. Alright. Couple powerful birds here. Mind Sensor makes my tutor effects a lot worse. Librarian is also good against tutors and is maybe a bit more impactful on its own. So we'll take that one. But yeah, those are 2 good cards to know about beforehand. Our opponent plays Choco. I'm fine trading here. Can maybe get Grief back with Blood on the Snow later. Now they do have an enchantment that they get to sack to the Invoke Despair, so it's not quite as effective as it could have been otherwise. Knight's Whisper, more card draw. Yeah, still want to invoke here just to maybe hit my land drop for next turn as well. Mitigate the damage we'll take. Alright, so may not have the land for Blood on the Snow, but we can draw a bunch of cards, play Terminus. Ooh, Mossborn Hydra, that's the type of card that can win the game in maybe a single attack if it goes uncontested. So now I may need to find some other answer, or just hope to draw the land, that would do it too. Choco attacks. Puts another land in place, so Hydra already an 8/8. And with a fetch land that could be lethal next turn, luckily found the land. Alright, so destroy all creatures, please. And then I'll get back Grief. Our opponent's gonna flash in Mind Sensor in response. So they do get to have that in play at least. And yeah, they ramped quite a lot, so it's easy for them to redeploy Choco. So we could still be in a bit of trouble. If we can find a second sweeper, we should be in the clear. Alright, so what's my sequencing? Start with Knight's Whisper. And then I can still go Terminus into Worn Power Stone at the very least. Yeah, I found a sweeper. So now I get to attack for 1 mana. I don't expect any counter spells. So yeah, that was the best case scenario, finding untapped land plus board wipe. So now there's just an anchorage to maybe worry about. And a Nadu, alright, they do have some powerful birds nowadays. The map token triggers Nadu, that's a powerful interaction. And Falco coming up. Alright, so opponent's not giving up. So this turn, still gonna draw with Sign in Blood targeting myself. A March can deal with Nadu. So if I cast one for X equals 4, I could still play Mind Stone. Or I guess Terminus also would have worked. Yeah, I don't think I let them untap. Although, do I want to gain life when we're maybe about to play Withar is the question. Maybe I do just wait and let them trigger Nadu a bunch more. The only concern is if they do draw into some counter spells along the way. So we've got a ton of mana to work with. Can translate that into extra cards. Opponents may be hesitant to play Falco after seeing all those board wipes. Nadu triggers. Finds a Fountain Port, another powerful utility land. Mind Stone. So still one unknown in hand, but opponent runs out Falco anyways. Alright, so coast is clear for Withar. I've got the white mana thanks to Cold Steel Heart. And then what's the plan afterwards? Maze Mind Tome draw versus take out Nadu maybe. So now our opponent's at 5. Can march for 4, make it 5. Remove Nadu. One last trigger. Finds Sass Chocobo. Okay, so we've got some life to work with. Opponent's at 5, so they're within range of some of our finishers. And they need to keep blockers back for Withar as well. Anchorage still getting busy. Chocobo to maybe Trump. Ooh, Bart Samboko, never mind. Opponent can just take out Withar. Yeah, that's one of the best payoffs in the bird deck. Falco also plays well with all the counters from the map token. I really just want to draw Corrupt to win the game. Nantuko to copy the Chocobo. Phyrexian Arena is next. So how much damage am I taking next turn? 7, 8, 9, plus another 4 at least. Alright, so I'm still safe to play Tome, draw. Can't afford to play Withar, because then I would just put myself at 5 and die. So, draw with Mindstone. Alright, Insatiable Avarice. That might do it, although maybe not this turn. Yeah, I can tutor for Corrupt, but I wouldn't be able to cast it. So I'm actually hesitant to play the Arena, because that's going to lose me 1 life for no real reason. So yeah, I can put Corrupt on top of the deck, and then not draw. Or I could also go for a Sweeper, wipe the board, and try and play a longer game. But yeah, as long as our opponent doesn't draw a counterspell or deal enough damage, next turn I should have it. Could even, for 3 mana, put Corrupt on top, draw into it with a Tome and still cast it, so I don't even have to go for it now, in case I change my mind. Field of Ruin doesn't have any targets, so they can't force me to shuffle. So that's another card we need to potentially watch out for. Alright, there's Choco. So the birds attack. Bunch of triggers happen. And Thief is next. Well, I guess that can go for the Avarice. But I have enough swamps in play where it doesn't matter. And a Dark Ritual doesn't hurt either. So yeah, I could even go for both modes. Put myself to 1. And get Corrupt. Bones at 8. And we can deal 10 damage. Awesome. So yeah, that was a very fun game. Ended up going down to the last top deck. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Hei Bai, 5-color shrines. So we have a lot of ramp, but nothing to really ramp into. So I don't think I can keep. This is a bit better. At least we have a plan with Blood on the Snow. Can dismember the Elvish Mystic to slow them down. Paying 4 life, courtesy of our opponent's life total in the future. But they can also return the favor with fetch lands and shock lands. And a Farseek, so yeah, their mana's perfect. They can play Hei Bai next turn. Yeah, that's too bad. Do not have an immediate answer to Hei Bai, so if they can flicker it as well, we could be in trouble. Do have some powerful ramp artifacts. They're just a bit on the slow side, especially when we're on the draw here. Our opponent was missing the land for Hei Bai, so at least we bought ourselves a turn. Still gonna Power Stone over Thoughtseize. But once I do have a lot of mana, Dark Petition becomes an appealing option. For now, Hei Bai. They still have a mana up. They found Honden of Infinite Rage, that's the one that deals damage. Ooh, Dark Ritual. So I guess I could Thoughtseize first. They have a Reanimate, that's good to know about. And a Wash Away to counter Withar. So I think I take the Sanctum for now, since that can draw them cards. And then I'm less incentivized to deal with their commander right now. So I could just play the Ring, wait on Dark Ritual, or we can Ritual out a Gilded Lotus. And then let's see, 5, 6... Yeah, I can still play the Ring afterwards. That seems worthwhile. Because yeah, removing Hei Bai when they can just bring it back for 1 mana does not seem worth it. Wash Away we can sort of play around. Of course they can also cast it for 3 mana to just counter a Dark Petition. But they may want to keep it around as a counterspell for my commander. And another Sweeper. Well, I may as well bait out a counterspell here, or get rid of the Reanimate. Although again, they might actively want Hei Bai to die so they can get more shrines. Dark Petition, I do think they would counter. Withar, I guess if they counter it, I can still play it next turn. So maybe this is the play. Just bait out the counterspell. 14 versus 22, so we would profit in the exchange. Alright, that's fine. Back to the command zone for now. Although honestly, could have also considered leaving it in the graveyard to eventually get back with Blood on the Snow, but that's still pretty far away. Alright, World Wagon now is kind of scary, since they can crew it even after a board wipe to still keep up the pressure. Also, I guess leaving my commander in the graveyard is a little sketchy with a Reanimate. And our opponent's going to pass a turn, maybe planning to activate Hei Bai, or they didn't want to lower my life total. Now, Catgator, I still only have 3 swamps in play, so it's not actually all that effective. So Dark Petition would leave me with 5 mana plus 3 mana from the petition itself. So we can still easily cast a board wipe. And then I might just want to get one of my card draw enchantments to lower my life total even more. So let's Dark Petition. That way I can cover up with Collect Evidence, which also matters since I would be able to exile Hei Bai so they can't reanimate it back for 1 mana. And then I think I get Necro. Either one could work. Cast a cover-up with Collect Evidence. So it's 6. So they can't let Hei Bai go to the graveyard. And instead it's going to cost 6 mana, which they can still afford. So exile Hei Bai. Can have a look at their library out of curiosity, but probably don't have time for this. Alright. So now they can send it back to the command zone, play Necro. Opponent can deal 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I think I can only afford to draw 2 cards here. But I have the mana to play Withar next turn at least, so that's the important part. because that can put me to 8. And then if they draw a land, play Hei Bai, Worldwagon gets another land, they could hit me for 7. Spirit Oasis. I guess they could have hit a Shrine to put +1 counters on the team, and then I could have died if they crewed Worldwagon with a trigger on the stack. But yeah, Spirit Oasis is still very good here. So we'll see if they get aggressive. If they drew a counterspell, we could also be in trouble. Our opponent does not attack with a Worldwagon. So now I have to hope that Withar resolves. Six, 7, 8. Can leave up mana for Swords to Plowshares, but I doubt it's gonna matter because it goes away end of turn. Does Withar resolve. Alright, so with the trigger on the stack now, activate Necro a whole bunch. So that's where attacking me still could have potentially paid off. Not playing around a burn spell. Plus I could always swords my own creature if needed. Opponent's fetching. What is this? Uh-oh, untapped Overgrown Tomb, so they've got something in mind. Could still be reasonable to Swords Hei Bai, so I gain more life off Withar's ability. Opponent's gonna crew in response, that's fine. Alright, so opponent's up to 23. And that life total is now mine. Perfect. And so we've got 7 cards coming up, don't feel the need to draw more. Next turn Cat Gator can hopefully do the honors. Opponent just cycling a Rafine's Tower. Cling to Dust also useful. If they were trying to set up Reanimates, so I'll hold it in hand. And don't need Arcane Signet. Phyrexian Arena. Okay, pass a turn. Hondon can deal 3. Sanctum makes some mana. Hei Bai is back. It's Sanctum of All, yeah, that's the best one. Although only triggers at the beginning of upkeep. So that might be too late. Exploration for more lanes. And a Noble. So they don't have a counterspell in hand, as far as I can tell. So then the Cat Gator should do it. Could cycle Cling to Dust for what it's worth. It's my turn. Play Cat Gator. 5 swamps in play. So that can deal 5 damage and our opponent explodes. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing the Sentinel. So, Temur Dragons. Our hand's got some nice mana acceleration, missing card draw. But I think I'll still try it. If our opponent has a mana elf, we can push it. Perfect. Turn 2 Transformer. Turn 3 either Power Stone or Simulacrum. So we want to find some sort of card draw engine if possible. And then a sweeper would also come in handy, since at some point our opponent's gonna go wide with lots of big dragons. For now, an Izzet Signet is gonna be harder to remove. Immortal Sun gives me card draw, so that's a good pickup. And I did not draw a land, so the only way to really guarantee enough mana for Immortal Sun is with a Power Stone. So we'll try that. Resolves. Increasing Ambition, one of our tutor effects, can maybe help assemble the other parts of Vecna. Feaster will discount their creatures. And Phantasmal Image to copy it. Okay. I'm just gonna play Mortal Sun. And then hope to draw a sweeper. If not, I can always try and tutor one up with the Ambition. Commander still costs full price, but now Spark Double for just 2 mana to copy it. Yeah. They have 3 of the same creature in play all of a sudden, so that's pretty scary. Can I find an answer? So Mindstone is essentially free to play here. And then Ambition, yeah, that still leaves plenty of mana for a board wipe. So you can get one that normally costs 5 mana. And don't want to necessarily lower my opponent's life total. Can go for a cover-up. So those are gone. If our opponent sticks around, I will try and assemble Vecna. Alright, that's fine. So play Hand of Vecna. Ambition, try and get the other 2 pieces. So we want the Book of Vile Darkness and the Eye of Vecna. And then Surveil. Land is fine. Servant gets in for 3. I get to untap. Play the Eye of Vecna. And play the Book of Vile Darkness. Alright, I guess we can activate this at instant speed as well. So, for now, play Solemn. And pass a turn. Make a zombie end of turn. Nurture, another way to ramp. Opponent's hanging in there, I can respect it. Alright, and I think it's time. Let's make Vecna. There we go, we did it. Okay. Can draw more cards. Opponent does have 1 unknown card in hand, so if it's a counterspell, things might get a little awkward. But I think the plan is Necro into Withar. And then with the Withar on the stack, or rather with the ability on the stack, I can activate Necropotence a whole bunch. Put myself to 1 life. I guess I'll maybe play around Lightning Bolt to leave myself at 4. Although I can also Corruption in response, so I'll go to 1. In full control, this is also a little faster than doing it 1 at a time. Okay. Resolve all. So end of turn I'll get to draw 15 cards. My opponent's life total goes to 1. Mine goes up to 21. And now we could attack if we'd like. Can even clear a path and just guarantee lethal here. Well, we did it. We assembled Vecna and we assembled our Necro combo. One of those two was perhaps a little bit more impactful than the other, but I'll let you figure out which is which. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Fire Lord Azula. And what do we think of our hands? I've got a ramp, one piece of Vecna, but it's not one that's particularly powerful by itself, and a corrupt. I think we can do better. Alright, this is a bit better. Consuming Corruption with 4 swamps can be an answer to Azula. Got some ramp, and Invoke Despair is also just powerful individually. So next turn play Solemn, which specifically gets a swamp, which enables all these corruption type cards. Opponent's got their own mana artifact. Can only hope that they tap out for Azula next turn and we get to Invoke Despair it. Now I could use a bit more card draw here, since we may run out of steam. Alyush, also fine target for Invoke. So they could still cast a 1 mana spell for free. Alright, it's my turn. So I can go Iron Crag into Invoke. Just need to tap carefully. Opponent's going to brainstorm a response, fair enough. Debating whether or not I want to attack with the Solemn, because I'm sort of playing with my own life total here. Alright, so I didn't draw any card draw effects, but Withar, when we have a higher life total, would actually draw me a bunch of cards as well. So yeah, can just cast my commander here. If they counter it, fine. If not, I'll get to draw a bunch of cards. Fairy Mastermind in response. Okay, so opponent's gonna get to draw a card as well here. Not gonna transform Iron Crag. Okay. Well, that's quite the hand. So I can start with Thoughtseize, and then maybe still Grief afterwards if needed. Suppose going for Dark Ritual, Signet, Thoughtseize also would have been fine. Opponent's gonna redirect Lightning, although I'm still the one that gets to choose what to discard, luckily. And I don't think I need the Arcane Signet too much. Let's just grief my opponents. Pitch Dark Ritual. And I don't even have to discard to hand size now, so that's convenient. Opponent had a Dualcaster Mage, Floodcaller, Trickster. There's a lot of flash creatures and a Chromatic Lantern. What's the scariest here? Maybe the Dualcaster. If they find a cheap instant. Sure. Because we can handle the creatures. Okay, so life totals are pretty even, but we get to draw a ton of cards. So yeah, seeing the upside of the second ability here, if you maybe don't have a low life total to set it up, you can still draw a bunch of cards. So Chromatic Lantern. Mastermind attacks. Take my draw. Attack for 7. Maybe should have started with Immortal Sun to pump up my team. Deal with the Masterminds. There don't seem to be any counter spells. Okay, so missed out on 2 damage. Flood Caller end of turn. They know about Languish, so Azusa's not looking great. And yeah, opponent's gonna throw in the towel here, getting to draw 2 cards per turn. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Rothga, Bonded, Engulfer. Not too familiar. For mana 4/4 Trampler, when it enters, they get a boon. That increases a creature's power. Pretty good. Yeah, our hand's decent too. Missing some cheaper ramp cards, but got the card draw. And then, especially Necrodominance can maybe combo with Withar. Ooh, turn 2 Rofellos, do not have an answer. So that might run away with the game. Unnatural Growth on turn 3. I can draw a lot of cards and then probably die. But yeah. I guess I go for Black Market Connection since I can use the extra mana from the treasure. Their opponent's got 8 mana here, uncontested. And there's their commander. Alright, Rofellos is keeping up mana, so it's possible they have a way to protect their team from a sweeper. So then the One Ring might be a good way to kinda waste their turn as well, while protecting myself. Can't quite go Gilded Lotus into the One Ring. Toxic Deluge could also get around an indestructible effect, to be fair. So maybe actually go Lotus into Deluge. They could also have a pump spell. So I might want to pay more than 4 here. Let's make it what's a likely pump spell for them to have. Yeah, let's just go for 4. Archdruid's Charm. Alright, just searching a land. And yeah, it's interesting, because Archdruid's Charm also could have dealt with the connections. Opponent getting a Thrun. That one's fine. There it is. So 10-10, indestructible in the opponent's turn, but no longer indestructible in my turn. So we have options, including Deadly Cover-Up, of course. The One Ring to protect me. Questing Beast, I guess, would kill me, since that prevents the damage prevention from the One Ring. So I think Cover-Up is probably the logical starting point. And then I could get a Necro Enchantment in play, just to set up Withar for next turn. Sure. But I'm hesitant to draw here. 5, 6, yeah, we should have enough mana even if they destroy the Gilded Lotus just by making a treasure. And if they have a haste creature with a natural growth, I could die. Just an Abundant Harvest for starters. They found a Defiler of Vigor and a Balustrade Wyrm, so they actually had a haste creature here. Yeah, that's gonna hit me for 10. I'm gonna lose at least 1 to the connections. But, yeah. I can actually lose 2, so I get to play Withar, put my opponent to 1. So now our opponent's at 1, we're back up to 24, and now I could draw with Necro again. Of course our opponent's still gonna hit me for 10 next turn, so that's still kind of an issue. But yeah, let's draw. Want to find one of my burn spells to finish them off, hopefully. It's probably good enough for now. Could also cycle the Cling to Dust now, just to draw a card. Dark Petition, I guess, can do it next turn. Just tutor for one of my finishers. Invoke Despair would do it too. So I've got plenty of options. And at 20 with a 5/5 lifelinker, we should be safe. And B Scholar, the one unknown. And a Defiler. So yeah, opponent does not have a Planeswalker, so they'll end up losing 2 to the Invoke Despair. And that's going to be game. And there we go, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Teval, so a Sultai graveyard deck with lots of land recursion. Our hand's decent. Talisman into Archive gives us a lot of mana. And then we'll see what we want to go for with tutor effects. Could try to assemble Vecna, could get something like a Necro enchantment to set up the kill with Withar. So both decks developing their mana. With 7 mana next turn, what's my plan? Could play Avarice with every mode. Never mind, Awaken the Honored Dead, a very nice answer to the Archive. So yeah, cannot sacrifice it in response, so that's just gone. Can keep on ramping with Solemn. Or I can Avarice just to draw 3 and tutor something up. And what would I get here? Probably just more ways to develop my mana. Could also try and get some graveyard hate, but that feels kind of weak. I guess I can get the tutor for the Vecna pieces, even though I do need more mana before I can deploy it. So Behold the Beyond can discard my hand, tutor up 3 cards, so we can assemble all 3 pieces at once. Land and Cold Steel is good. So maybe next turn I go Solemn plus Cold Steel. Maybe wipe the board and then get the 3 Vecna combo pieces. Thought Distortion in the graveyard, luckily. That would have been very effective against me. And now a Badger Mole for a bit more ramp. And a Witness, ooh, can get back. Thought Distortion. Yikes. So now I need to find a discard spell pretty much, or else my hand's gone. I guess it is 6 mana, but yeah, they just have a land in hand. And that's gone. That's incredibly rough. I guess I just Meat Hook for 2 and then play Cold Steel Heart. Yeah, just the threat of a Thought Distortion also means I'll never be able to get the Vecna pieces unless I can immediately cast them. Alright, so that was pretty effective. And Witness can also be eternalized to get stuff back. Teval we can dismember at least. Still hesitant to pay too much life, because I really want to find a way to turn my life total into card advantage, for instance, so then I might want to have more life to work with. Alright, Besiege could get one of the Necro enchantments. Given that they got rid of my Behold the Beyond, I don't think I'm going for Vecna anymore. So then I could Besiege, even sacking the Solemn. And get Necro. That resolves. And we'll activate. Gonna draw at least 7 or 8 in case our opponent can destroy it. And then next turn we can try and set up the Withar combo. Let's draw one more. Okay. So we get a full grip. And a couple lines can go. Alright. So we'll see what they can come up with. And yeah, our opponent's gonna scoop it up. Next turn we can put ourselves to 1, swap life totals, and then either Invoke Despair or maybe even a Meathook Massacre can finish them off. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw, facing Go-Shintai of Life's Origin, 5-color shrines. Well, at least it's not Hei Bai. Hand is keepable. Some early ramp into a Necro. That's kind of a recipe for success. Don't usually see Opt in these decks. Now a Shared Roots. So yeah, next turn they can already play their commander. Play the Signets. And there it is. I just want to build up my mana to set up Meathook Massacre. Can keep Mind Stone available in case I need to sacrifice it on the off chance that they try and destroy it. Alright, opponent's gonna run out some more shrine creatures, which we can clean up pretty easily. And Shattered Heights, not the scariest shrine. So I can Massacre for 4. And fetch a Surveil Land end of turn. And then we've got a lot of life to pay to our Necro. And Life's Origin is back. Don't need more lanes. Okay, so this turn Necro into Solemn seems fine. And then I'll just draw 6 cards. Setting up Withar for next turn. And then I even have a creature in play, which could matter. Because if I attack with her opponent at 1 life, this Simulacrum would be lethal. Because if it dies, our opponent loses 1 life to the Meathog Massacre. If it hits them, they die as well. So then they're forced to chump with a 1/1. And can discard probably a land here. Helpful Hunter draws a card. And a Cultivate. They do still have a blue mana up, so Wash Away is not out of the question. Unless they're going to activate the Sanctum. Okay. I'm not going to be threatening lethal necessarily. But I can still put my opponent to 1, and then it doesn't take much to cross the finish line. Still going to make sure this resolves first, on the off chance that they have a free counterspell here, like a Pact of Negation. And then, with a trigger on the stack, in full control it's also a little easier to activate Necro multiple times. A little bit short of casting Villainous Wrath, since that could also make them lose a bit of life to close out the game. Okay, resolve all. We're going back up to 20. Take action, please. And then may as well make a zombie end of turn. And draw a million cards. I'll get to keep 7. It's a little easier than having to discard. And Sign in Blood could do the honors as well. Alright, so what do we like? Damnation, Grief, Behold the Beyond, Tendrils. I mean, all these cards are great. Sign in Blood can close out the game. Invoke Despair could be a finisher. Dread Presence with a Swamp. Or maybe Villainous Wrath. So what don't we like as much? Probably don't need the Grief. Alright, something along these lines. So yeah, there's a lot of different finishers. Sign in Blood is 2 damage. Invoke, if they don't have a Planeswalker, is also 2 damage. Dread Presence with a Swamp could have been lethal. Villainous Wrath makes the opponent lose life. And Behold the Beyond could also tutor up more cards for us. If we maybe want to go for Vecna. Alright, opponent's gonna Sanctum Withar, which triggers Meathog Massacre if it dies. So that would also be game. So they're just gonna call it after dealing 3. Okay. It's my turn. And yeah, we'll keep it simple. Villainous Wrath. Opponent loses a bunch of life. And that's game. So yeah, we get to see this black-white Mr. Negative / Withar Cocoon Keeper deck in action. And yeah, the deck's pretty good at setting up some 2-card combos where we can easily set the opponent's life total to 1, and then it doesn't take much to close out the game. And the Vecna was also kind of fun to see in action after all these years, although I would not necessarily recommend it if you're looking to maximize your win rate. The cards individually are pretty weak, and it takes a lot of effort to get all 3 in play and actually get some value out of it. So yeah, you can easily go without that package. But for now, I want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.